Um, Thanks everybody for joining. Looks like there's 18 total on the line. That's great. My name is Todd Brandell. I am the Vice President of Product at Gobi. So I work hand in hand with Sayantani. I get that pleasure. And she's been obviously very active in the Chicago Einstein Analytics Meetup groups. So she's asked me to come give an intro. For those who don't know us or our company, we're a sustainability analytics firm. We handle data for a lot of commercial real estate companies to help them better understand how their properties are performing in terms of energy consumption, water consumption, waste, landfill, and then we do a bunch of different reporting with the data. So we use Einstein heavily. Lots of our front-facing UI is based on Einstein Analytics. And Sayantani is basically the one who builds everything. So you're in very good hands with her. Today, there's going to be, looks like, war stories, people talking about their experience with Einstein, both good and bad. Hopefully some of these war stories have happy endings. But yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Sayantani. So welcome, everybody. Really appreciate all the participation. I know this is a very collaborative group. Which is just fantastic to see. So hopefully a lot of good knowledge gets shared, and I will shut up now and let you guys get into the meeting and the presentation. So thanks everybody again for joining.
Hello everyone. So this is our anniversary. The first one we had was 7th of August 2019, which was the day of Midwest Dreaming. So in the morning we had a hackathon, and many of you actually were present in the hackathon, and we had a very good time. So since then, we have been doing this every 2 months. And recently with COVID, this has become an online webinar. So we have people joining from all over the world. It's no longer just based in Chicago, or, well, it's still based in Chicago, but anyone and everyone from all around the world are joining now. So yay to a very happy anniversary for us. As Todd said, we will be discussing our war stories, but before that, I want to introduce our speakers and just say hi when I call out your names, and it will be in this order. So first, Jana.
Hi, happy anniversary.
Thank you. And so she works at Millennium Trust Company. She's the VP, and she's going to talk on what's the plan for this. So all on introduction to Einstein Analytics and how you implement it. It'll be a very cool presentation, followed by Phil. I think he's on the call.
Yep, I'm here. Hi, everyone.
He works at Wellski and is the manager for client informatics. He will be presenting, and he told me it's a live demo of client health scoring algorithm using data flows and SQL. So lots to learn. Kevin, I think you're also on the call.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone.
He works at Marillac, St. Vincent Family Services. So this is extremely unique in the way that he works for a nonprofit organization. So we will get to see some nonprofits, Einstein, and he's going to be presenting on collectively joining forces, benchmarking assessments. Then of course, everyone knows Jennifer Shier. She will be presenting on the ultimate EA war story. That is what she has named. So Jen.
I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but I met Sayantani when I was working on this project. So there's a lot of people that remember going through this, but it has a very, very positive ending to it. You can't pay for that kind of education, right? And for those who don't know me, I work at Palo Alto Networks, internet security company in Silicon Valley, but we're all home right now. So I'm really grateful for all of our Data Tribe Chicago groups here, because you can't be alone all the time in what you do.
And last but not the least, Nicolai Johnson-Borelli. He is going to join us at 3 o'clock, and he works at SpringML. He is going to talk about 4 stages of analytics using Einstein. So let's hold on for that. I'm going to stop presenting, and Jana, you can take it away.
Great, thank you. see. Yes, so just as Nicolai said in the introduction, we have a mutual business friend, and some of that came with trying to get some help with Einstein Analytics. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and my war story behind it. And then the best way to describe the experience that I've had so far with Einstein Analytics is hashtag what's the plan for this? And some of you.
Okay, that's a good, that resonates with me.
Yeah, so this is kind of what happened. This is the basis of our Einstein Analytics. But before I go into that in terms of Einstein Analytics, I'll give you a little background for me where hashtag what's the plan for this came from. So in my house, kind of a nice way to tell people in my family if they've left a lot of shoes by their front door or piles of paperwork or, you know, things like that kind of drive me crazy. I've learned not to, or learned how to better handle a situation by saying, what's the plan for this? So they can kind of make a decision. So we've come up with this fun little way of saying that to each other in our house. But I relay that to Einstein Analytics because I feel like that's what happened is it piled up. We have had licenses for a long time. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think at one time it was called Wave. From a product standpoint,
it was. In 2017, it became, summer 2017, it became Einstein Analytics.
Yeah, so we had it, and it was on the shelf, kind of like you see here. And it sat there and collected a lot of dust. And then about a year and a half ago, we started talking about Einstein Analytics in its more current form and kind of got excited about it. There was a little back and forth. And then we hired a chief growth officer. His main mission was to obviously grow revenue, help the firm take some things to the next level. We had always looked at our business coming in the form of accounts, which resided in Salesforce with a lot of other data, but our financials live in another platform. So he wasn't able to connect the dots there. So we went through a whole exercise, business requirements, really diving into how he wanted to look at data. So it was very new and different. And talked with our Salesforce rep and success manager, and they said, you know what you need? You need more licenses for Einstein Analytics, and we need to bump you up a level. And that sounded really exciting. But hashtag, what's the plan for this?
Jeff Rothman would know that part of it, being the sales engineer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we didn't really have much of a plan. Here were the challenges we faced. So we made all these purchases, increased the number of licenses, took the business requirements, document, met with IT. They were very scared. I knew our main Salesforce admin knew a little bit about the older version of the product. So we worked with Salesforce, sent her to a bunch of classes, trying to, just have her skill up and be ready, but realized, there wasn't really anyone else in the company that knew anything about this. And that's why others in IT were scared. Our data governance and, other people from a infrastructure standpoint. And it took a lot of meetings to really make a breakthrough on, no, we need a business intelligence tool. We don't want to do a huge integration lift. This would be so easy. Let's just use what we have, take it off the shelf and use it. So they got on board with that, and the project's been kind of sitting for a while and figuring out how to make those data sets work from these other systems, and how are we going to pull them in, and a lot of more technical talk than I'm used to. I sit on the business side. I can understand some technical talk, but not my expertise. So, just trying to facilitate some of that has been challenging. And then really now they're testing, pulling in data. We also got MuleSoft. So they're using MuleSoft to pull data, test, and whatever they're, again, technical things that go way beyond me. But there's still some gaps, and part of the gaps go back to a person that knows how to use Einstein Analytics because she's taken classes. We don't really have a plan for others to skill up. And so again, it's just this stop, start, and test this, but we've really been unable to launch anything. Meanwhile, one of the ways that I got steered toward this group and some other resources was raising my hand to say, hey, I know, we're kind of a small firm. We like to do a lot of things in-house, but if this is beyond our capability, maybe we should, get a contractor or, some kind of external help. And that's been tossed around, but again, no real plan and no strong execution behind it.
Oh,
So
I have to interject here, though, for comic relief, for everybody who's kind of feeling your tension as you're going through this. You're sold it as if EA just is like a crystal ball, and if you put it in your org, it'll know exactly what you want, and it's already there.
Because it's a black box. You can just throw your data at it. It tells you the most insightful points that you have ever seen. You don't have to do anything.
Right.
yeah, wouldn't that be great?
They don't tell you about the learning curve, or there's no people that know it, except for maybe all of us that are in this meeting right now, right? It takes a lot of work to learn it.
Yeah. So I kind of just jumped to my last. So we're trying to get a new hashtag with a new plan, and realized it's not that easy. You're exactly right. I wish it were, but there's so much more to it. There's a lot of complexity, and we've learned a lot. So now trying to figure out, okay, let's take a step back. We know this would be great for us. That vision is still there. We know we need to find the right kind of training and people with experience. We can have some internal people learn, but to your point, it's not that easy. Or if you've done a couple trailheads and taken a class, it still doesn't give you the hands-on knowledge. So there's much more to that. And that's where resources come in. So again, going back to the drawing board of, do we have anyone internally to tap into? And we need to have serious conversations around some external help. That's really I believe the right thing to do. Otherwise, we're just going to continue to try to band-aid a solution or never get this thing off the ground. And if today we didn't necessarily have it in the budget, we need to get it in the budget and make it happen. Go back and revisit the timeline. Obviously, that's always a work in progress. And we don't know, there's still a lot of unknowns there because of the 2 points above this. And I think if I could really look at myself in terms of gathering requirements and working with all of these different folks to try to fulfill their needs, even bringing them together to share their vision and mindset. I think we had some communication gaps, and we could do better there. You know, sometimes, whether it be at that executive level, someone like this new chief growth officer or other people, senior leadership team, even on down to anyone who might be hands-on with it, having more communication around what this product or whatever solution like it is, what it does. Sometimes they don't want to hear that. They just want to know that you got them there, and they want to, you know, see the outcome. But I feel like this one's pretty big and something that we've never had before. So it requires, at least on the business side, a lot more communication to get better buy-in and better understanding of what it is we're trying to accomplish. Again, I think you nailed it, Jen, is that we came out of the gate too basic, and we don't want to get too complex and in the weeds, but I still think there's a lot of work that we didn't realize needed to happen in terms of that communication and education around where we would be going with something like this. So that's my war story. And
you're doing an amazing job, though, considering the circumstances. Like, you're here talking about it, and we're kind of laughing about it, and you got a fun hashtag. And, you know, I always tell people, if you can't have fun doing your job, you know, even during the worst times, then why are you doing your job, right? It's not meant to, like, make you miserable. It's meant to, you know, give you some brain food while the world's upside down, right? So
exactly.
You're on the path to, you wish you would have known what you know now, but at least you can go only up from here, right?
Yes, exactly. And, you know, not every project's perfect, you know, and there were good intentions there, and there still are. But we're not equipped for this. And I need to make sure that other people understand how complex this is, and make sure that we're set up right as we go forward.
Tony, you know what, for one of our future meetings, why don't we talk about that, like, it takes to get up and running when you first get it, staffing needs.
Yep. Implementation and plans. Yes.
Yes.
And maybe we can ask Jeff to present on that.
That'd be fun.
That was his job.
Exactly. That's why.
And we're in the middle of converting over to Agile, so that's going to be really interesting.
You have to do the presentation. You can't mention Waterfall or Agile or Jira or Sprints or any.
Right, or else you mentioned Waterfall, you get pegged with water balloons. If you do that, so yeah, nothing complicated.
You gave us a great topic from that, Jen.
Exactly. You gave us a great topic, Jana. Jeff, anything you want to comment on what she's talking about? And I understand a lot of people have issues when they start implementing something new, and this is an awesome presentation just based on how difficult it is at times.
I think this is awesome. It's almost every customer I saw in the field too, not only internally at Salesforce, but that's exactly what it is. They want you to give them something, but they don't know what they want, but they'll know what they want when they see it. That is the biggest cop out. Like, everyone's wasting their time if you take a project on where they're doing that. If nothing else, what I do is I start at the top. You know, if they can't think of what they want, I start at the top. Like, what's your 401k say? What are your top 2 or 3 goals for the company? And try to get them to see have that, what they're going for, trickle down until we get something that they can then show to their managers or those managers, or else, I mean, analytics just for the heck of it wastes everyone's time. It really does need to have a purpose. So if you have the ability to, and you can push back to get to the meat of what they need, make sure you do that, because recreating dashboards, I mean, that's like so 15 to 20 years ago, and we don't want to do that anymore. We're trying to take it to the next level with visualization and action. So Jana, awesome job pushing back and kind of getting to the meat of what you need to do, plus training. Everybody always forgets training and communications, like letting people know and feeling like they've had a stake in what's going on. So thanks for including that in there.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Anyone has any questions? I did find one in the chat. Jade says, what's the plan for this? Genius. So everyone loves the topic. Any questions before we move on to Phil?
Yeah, Jenna, I have a question. This is Kevin.
Hey, Kevin.
Yeah, I wanted, by the way, good job. I wanted to ask, how was it in terms of the budget process? Was it complicated trying to get those dollars to get those licenses? And if so, how did you go around, trying to make sure that it's meaningful that you need to get those licenses on that org?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're a very small firm. We have about 400 people, experiencing pretty rapid growth, but still small. But I think for a small firm, we have a pretty large investment in Salesforce overall. And it seems like, I mean, I've worked in larger companies where there's a lot of red tape, and there hasn't been a lot of constraint when it comes to spending, especially more technology. I think our CTO is pretty influential. So I probably don't have the best answer that would apply across the board, just given kind of how we operate. Although with a new chief growth officer who's looking at revenue a lot more closely, and I think some of our budgeting will change. Where with this, at the time that purchases were made, we were also adding some other things, revisiting our contract in general. So we were adding a little something around Marketing Cloud and some other things that maybe the CTO already had in the budget before. And, in typical Salesforce fashion, in the way that they bundle things, in the way that they, because we already had licenses, so if you swap X amount of licenses for this amount, but you get to go up a level, then it's kind of the shuffle, if you will, then I think there just weren't a lot of eyes on it, is the short answer. But we've tried to that's not a good answer, though. We should be more careful, and we should be more, we should have a plan. And we should be challenged. We should be challenging each other on all of the things that I talked about. And our senior leaders should challenge us as well. Not just from dollars spent, but what is this going to do for us? What tools do we already have? There should be a lot of questions. And in the past, there really weren't. So that while that sounds exciting, we can just, free for all, buy whatever we want. It's really not. And this project in itself is proof of that.
That's where it's Jeff's hashtag analytics, just for the heck of it.
Yes.
Go in with a plan, right? Is the message.
Yeah.
Totally.
Good.
Or what is it? Hashtag analytics for a pretty picture. It's like, we need more than that, though. That is a nice side benefit, but we need something more.
And EA isn't cheap. That's kind of what blows me away when we get through all of our war stories, which we could probably go a month with all of our, collective war stories here, but it's a pricey product. So, I mean, I would think most customers would have like an intention for it, but they don't. And I found in my tour of duty, in all of our war stories, that I don't had one customer that ever got it really knowing what they wanted out of it in the first place. Just like, we're gonna get some analytics and see what happens.
And I would do that. That's a great point. I would hold Salesforce, the pre-sales team, but especially customer success, because they're supposed to be talking. If they're selling, if sales is selling something, it's supposed to be knowledge transferred. And internally, feel free, hold your solutions engineers accountable, because that's the group I work with now. There's literally, out of the 12 metrics that they have to report on for every deal that they're pursuing, 2 of them out of the 12 has to do with what's the customer's level of competency, and do they have a systems integrator picked? I mean, that's not optional. They have to answer that. And not only do they have to answer that question for every opportunity, they have to do it every 60 to 90 days. We call it a scorecard, an opportunity scorecard. So especially on the enterprise side. I'm not sure if they're doing it in commercial, but for sure, any of our enterprise customers, hold them accountable. Don't let
That's
them.
great to know they're making some checks and balances now to measure, like, can this customer handle this product? Are they prepared, or do they need our help? Even preparing for it to go into their org, because there's settings, right? Once it gets in there. So
it is the SE's job. Yep, it's the AE and SE's job. If they're selling to you, yeah, that it's part of your job, of course, but they're equally as accountable. So use them.
Okay, there's a question from Matthew. He's asking, how do you figure the functionality of Einstein Analytics competes with the internal data science team?
Oh, that's my everyday.
Did Jana, did you say that, or Matthew, are you just asking, like, how would you explain?
He's asking.
Oh, who wants to I can take that if nobody else wants to.
I guess I can clarify it. I would say that
this picture. Sorry, keep going.
I was just kind of wondering, I'm come from a stats background, eventually I'll merge like my Salesforce background with the Einstein Analytics. The question I would have though is, how does Einstein Analytics kind of compete with the data science projects per se? Because to me, there's this natural intersection of like a CRM analytics. You have all your CRM data for a company in Salesforce. And I have to imagine data science teams are wanting to mine that pretty extensively.
Yeah, I would say the product team right now is working with kind of working on a way to easily take data sets out of Einstein Analytics so that you could, with a few clicks, being able to work with external APIs to send it to R or something else for analysis. I'd say data scientists themselves, though, I think it's really about scale. Our Einstein Discovery product is what's going to allow them to do more of that, like, because we say analytics, but the biggest laugh I got is when we first launched Wave/Einstein Analytics is we didn't have analytics. It was visualization, kind of like reporting. There wasn't that statistical side of it until we acquired BeyondCore and it became Einstein Discovery. But now what you can do is, I would take the centralized data science team, take all of the use cases that span the entire company, those centralized use cases that are the most critical, like United Airlines doing price optimization, predicting, flight times, that kind of stuff. And then for each line of business, enable them with a tool like Einstein Discovery to be able to go in there and point and click and use the same types of tools you're using, but it's under the hood. So for example, if you look at that link that I just posted in the chat window, you can look and see, in the mean squared deviation, you can look at the R-squared scores, you can look at what model's being used under the hood. And it doesn't replace a stats course, it never will, but they can do enough to get them far enough along to where it allows your centralized data science team to scale while they're kind of, chugging along. Like, you might be able to do something in a week. It might take them, 4 or 5 weeks, but you're not having to deal with that. And frankly, what I've heard some centralized data scientists say is some of the use cases at the line of business level actually aren't even really very interesting to them at all. And it's like, they're happy to get rid of it so they can focus on the more challenging things. So I'd say its places, I would let give them something that's UI driven, like Einstein Discovery, and then the centralized data science team take on the larger use cases. Does that answer your question or help out at all?
Yes, that I think provides a lot of clarification. Thank you.
And
we play a lot of tradesies, like at our company with data science, because they'll take data that's too, we don't want to deal with, like trying to make a data flow with, and make it into something usable and do an external load. And in turn, they'll take our data already processed in there and then add it to what they're working with. So they kind of complement each other if you want, right? So that's like the main thing. If you have a good relationship, you can make it work between both of you, saying what is the product I have and what does it do that yours doesn't, and where can we meet in the middle? That's
Yeah.
a suggestion.
Yeah, if I had to describe our position with Einstein Analytics and Discovery and what we're trying to do is we're trying to take something that's honestly untouchable and has been untouchable for decades and just give the end user just a little slice of ability to be able to do that. Like if you look at that link, I mean, when I started using this, I'm like, what the heck is multicollinearity? I mean, I learned all these words that made me feel smart, but I still had no idea what they truly meant compared to a statistician. But using this, I was able to kind of come from the opposite and the layman's side of it to where I can understand what our data scientists are talking about and kind of relate what we're doing to that. I feel like the product team, we got a product manager, Avni from H2O, I think about a year and a half ago, and she's done wonders for making the tool be able to not only be easy to use, but when it explains things, it does it in a way that's probably a good happy medium between what an end user would say or how they describe it and a data scientist. It's somewhere in the middle to where they can interface with each other pretty easily. And it builds, I found that the models and kind of the analysis of the models are way more than enough to give the data scientist confidence in the business using the tool.
Let's move on. Thank you, Jeff. That was an awesome explanation of the difference or how to use data science and Einstein Analytics and Discovery together. Thank you. Next up is Phil, who will be presenting on creating a client health scoring algorithm using data flows and SQL. Take it away, Phil.
All right. Hi, everyone from Kansas City to Chicago. Thanks for letting some of us come and virtually visit with you guys. I am going to be showing one of the very interesting things that our company tried to produce around Client 360. So I'll start by just kind of teeing up what the problem was that we found ourselves in. Similar to Jana and your story, when I came into WellSky, I was told, here's Einstein Analytics, get it up and running, figure out how we can use it in our organization. No other plan, no other resources in our company that could assist. And so I just took it from the ground up and started by seeing how can I build something meaningful to our upper level management, recognizing I wanted to get them as key stakeholders and then start to work my way back down towards my manager level. That actually paid off really, really well. And hopefully it continues to pay off as we continue to deliver quality assets and insights to our organization. But I'll start by saying this all stemmed from an issue where we found last year to 8 months ago, we had a problem, and we've always had this problem, where we don't know what's been going on at our client sites, right? So our COO might be going to visit with the client, and they won't know how many support cases have been coming in. What is our support ecosystem looking like for this client? How much in revenue have we received for this client over the last year? How much in bookings or sales have we gotten over the last year? None of that information was readily available to anyone on our team. It would take at least a week of going and gathering that information from different stakeholders across our business and being able to pull it all together, then try to visualize it. At that point, that data is already a week old. So if an issue shows up in that week, you don't have visibility to it. So we had a lot of problems with pulling that data together into a cohesive story that could say, this is what's going on at a specific client, and it's updated every hour. So I know that if I'm on the go, if I'm walking into the door of one of our clients, into their headquarters, I'm meeting with their executive team, I can know what's gone on at that location, most likely sooner than that executive team. Because we have mobile assets, we have Einstein Analytics on desktop, we've given them both options, our end users both options, so that they can go and leverage this regardless of maybe the medium that they prefer. If you prefer it on your phone, we have an asset for you there. If you prefer it on desktop, we have that as well. So that's where we were a year ago. And I'll start actually by showing a really quick visual of kind of the original thought around this. So this is something me and our VP of client experience put together. And you guys can all see my screen, I assume, hopefully. Okay. So, hey, we want to put together all of these data elements around who our clients are in our accounts. And so we're just sketching it. Algorithmic scoring, question mark, is this even possible? Can we do something like that? Looking at all of these different metrics that are being pulled from different Salesforce environments, different Salesforce instances, different Salesforce workflows and processes, right? So we had closed cases might be done, it might be resolved, it might be closed, no resolution. There was no consistency in the organization around that. A one opportunity might have been closed won, it might have been booked, it might have been contracted, and we had multiple Salesforce instances. So we had to pull all of that together for a single cohesive story for our end users to be able to consume. So this is where we started. Honestly, this was a year and a half ago that we started this sketch.
That was your first project? Holy crap.
No, my first project was just in sales. I started off in sales.
Oh, sorry. I meant of all the things to tackle, like sometimes people are like, let's just get a quick win. You're like, let's just start with the hardest project we could possibly think of first.
Yeah, so it started with, hey, so I started off in sales operations. And so I built all of the information that we needed to for our sales team and the executive team on up, or as it pertained to sales. I then did the same thing around our support ecosystem. And then it's like, okay, now we have these two core data sets, if you will. Now we need to start pulling everything together, tying it together, putting it in a pretty package, and shipping it out to our end users. So yeah, it was a little bit of a bear, but this was about a year and a half ago that we kind of cast the vision for what we want to accomplish, right? We have plenty of other projects that were in the pipe, plenty of other things that we were working on, but this is where we knew we wanted to get to. We just didn't know when we'd be able to get to that point. So then fast forward to probably December of last year. And that's where we started to put together our Client 360, our actual Client 360 dashboard. So we put together the algorithm throughout about a quarter leading up to then before we actually produced it or went live with it. And I'll kind of walk you through the final version and then go back again into some of the more technical pieces if that's interesting to you all. So this is where we ended up. So we have assigned a scoring algorithm for all of our clients based on a number of key metrics across finance, support, product, and sales. Each one of those sub areas receives a score, and each one of those scores then is weighed accordingly to what our business needs and how we value it to get an overall client health score. So in this case,
are you doing those formulas? Are you doing them in like a Salesforce formula so you can use them in reporting as well? Or are you doing them just for Einstein Analytics only in the data flow?
Yep, so we're doing them in Stackable initially. We're also doing it in the data flow. And this is where we're able to go and do all of our snapshots. So our original plan was, okay, we want to get this out to people, and that's fantastic, right? But okay, so this, I removed the client names here, but we had a client and they have a score of 61. Let's say next week that score jumps up to 85 or it drops down to 45. Well, I, as an end user, need to know what changed. And that isn't visible here, right? Because these are all point in time metrics, more or less. So we had to also go ahead and build the same logic out in a data flow so that we could snapshot it every single week. And then when our end users come in here and click view trends, they can see what's gone on
If I could heart that data flow, I would have, like all the likes.
I was thinking the same thing, exactly.
I was thinking the same thing, and better yet, I was thinking like, when did we put color coding on the nodes? I'm out of it. When did that happen?
No, isn't this wonderful? You need this. It's a lifesaver.
It's a lifesaver. It's created by Matthew Howarth. He created
The EA dashboard.
yep.
I haven't checked that out in a while. Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out because that is so much easier. One thing I wish we could get him to do is I would like to be able to pull a data flow and visualize it if it's not on my system, because sometimes you get sandbox.
Get in line, Jeff.
But if he can do that, I know he can do D3 JavaScript or some kind of visualization like that. Anyway,
get someone on your team to do it. You have the resources there at Sales.
I'll work with
programmers.
Matthew. This is cool, man. I have a question for you. Did you think of, or did you analyze using the snapshot trending feature of Einstein apps just to get that snapshot of data set and then bring it in? Or did you specifically want to just do it in the same data flow so you can keep it all in one place and in one data set?
So we have it in, so this is essentially just building the same algorithm that is sourced or is in SQL.
Okay.
So that's all that's being done here. What we're then doing is we're taking this data set, this final data set, and then we are snapshotting that week over week in a different data flow that runs every week.
Okay, good. Okay, that makes sense. Because now what's great about that snapshot is you can literally out of the box go to, start, create app, and choose the snapshot data app. And then it automatically will do that snapshot for you. And you can either pick a existing data set, or you can pick an existing object inside Salesforce. And that's, I think, probably the easiest way to capture those slowly changing dimensions. So like the difference between like a case that's closed and a case that's still open,
yep.
Where the values change could be every hour, not really, but every 6 to 8 hours. If the client's got OCD. If the customer has OCD and keeps calling back in.
Yep. So this is where we ended up. So as an example, if I look at a revenue score for this particular account, we can say, okay, this is the revenue that they're getting, their growth year over year, their month over month recurring revenue growth. I can see where it is. I can see each one of those transactions over time. I want to know what percentage of this revenue is still tied up in AR. I can dive into that. I can see the buckets of it as well. So how much of it is current, how much of it is aged. And then if we dive into our support scores. So overall, we're doing fairly well with support in this particular instance. Responding to every single case 95% of the time in a day, closing 86% in a week. That's not the case across all of our business, certainly. But you can see by going in here, you can dive into different attributes of an account. And by making this in SQL, we're actually able to make everything relative, right? Because I don't want to measure an account that's providing us $3 million annually, $10 million annually, $100 million annually, the same way. Each one of those clients, I want to make sure we're calculating their scores relative to the size of the organization. Because an organization...
If I could like, oh my God, if I could just take your statement and bottle it up and just shout it from the mountaintop and have everybody write it down, I would, because what I've seen that happen in every place is their targets are pulled off someone's kind of like just their expertise. And expertise is great, but it doesn't necessarily always include data. It's kind of what they think is right. And like you said, it's always changing. God, if you use the benchmarks from the beginning of year, if you're still using those after COVID hit, you're screwed. So if you use this dynamic method, like you're doing, then where it kind of, I mean, you can do quartiling. We have every single statistical function every popular one out there, and you can always have that relative to not only the client, but it's going to change the time. Like when you have those reference lines, now you can go into reference lines on the chart and you can pick that query where you did SQL, and that bar, and that literally that line where your target is, you don't even have to know anything. You don't have to know bindings anymore. It's just like what you're talking about is where the magic is. All your goals are relative to what's actually
Science,
going
honey, I
on.
think that's another topic for us to do in the future. Since we've made 1 year, we've got a whole year to fill this next one. But yeah, like how do you accurately measure based on what somebody thinks versus what is? And
Yeah,
bias
dynamic
experts.
dynamic targets or dynamic
Mhm.
reference. That's
And the highest paid person in the room wins, right? So that changes the dynamic a little bit too. So
yeah.
yeah, it's a
Yep.
great topic for us to delve into in the future.
Oh, I thought you were talking about here, and in that case, since you're consulting, you win, Jen. So you get to talk.
Phil, you have another 7 minutes.
All right. Well, I mean, this is basically all that I wanted to show. I mean, it's showing some of the more, I would say it's more advanced capabilities of analytics
What
and a
was your
real,
hashtag? I'm sorry, I don't mean to talk over you, but you know I'm Spectrum-y, so I get all
bring it on.
that is Jeff. But what would your hashtag for like your original problem be? Just like how Jana had one?
Oh man, I don't even know.
Like, where do we start?
I'm not good. I'm not good with the social media hashtags, so I'll leave that up to you, Jen.
I got
There
you
it
covered.
is.
I got you covered.
Jeff has you covered.
Yep, client 360 from impossible to possible.
There you go. So I do want to give a huge shout out. So Morgan on our team here at WellSky came on and honestly did a lot of the grunt work or most of the grunt work for all of this. There was a lot of me saying, hey, we should change the algorithm from this here and tweak it 20 degrees over here. You need to update the UI from over here to here. And she executed flawlessly there. So I do want to give a quick shout out to her. But really, this is about understanding what is the business need, right? A client health score of 80 with no additional context means nothing to our end users. They don't know what that means and they don't frankly care. It's just another number that is worthless to them. So when you start to provide some value around it by saying, and here's how we're calculating that. So a really big piece of this was around the education, because we had to educate our end users, get them comfortable with the algorithm itself and how we're calculating it. And that takes time. We're not 100% there yet. It's a work in progress. Certain users are always a little bit more challenging than others, which I'm sure we all can understand. And where we're spanning so many different functional areas of the business, we always get voices from different individuals saying, well, my scores in support are consistently looking really poor, so I want to change that. I want to change the algorithm so my support scores look better. Or my finance scores are looking poor, I want to update the algorithm so that my finance scores look better across our client base. And we have to come back to them and say, well, if we do that, here's the consequences. Here's what's actually going on, and I'm not going to just put lipstick on this pig just because you want me to, right? You have to be able to make that informed decision and push back against people who are certainly above you in a pay grade.
Well, it's hard. Well, Phil, that's a good point. Like, to me, it's hard. Like, the incentives are the incentives. Like, the require. Like, to me, you know, like what they're being asked to do is what they're being asked to do. They don't get to change that. That measurement, like one way I've found you can fight back is saying, if you don't have a consistent high level goal, there's no way to do year over year or quarter growth. And there's not a business on this planet that does not expect those type of metrics. So no, I'm not going to let you choose your high level goal, change your high level goal for how every single relationship client management company in the industry works. But it was a good try. Just work harder.
So as an example, just this week, I went toe to toe with my boss, our VP of client experience, around this number, which is how long does it take on average for us to respond to a case that comes in, right? And for one particular client, it showed 18 days. And it's only because they had a few cases in their backlog that they never responded to at all that got opened and they were still open. And so their average time was just, it was awful. And he's like, well, I don't want to see that on our client 360. I don't want that to be part of our algorithm. And it's like, no, we have to still include that. It's still a valuable thing. You need to actually go and change the workflow and the process behind that number. We can give you the insights to be able to do that. So I can publish something for you where every single day you get a list of those outstanding cases that don't have a response in any channel to back to our clients, right?
You brought up a good, the other thing too is when we've got those, what we'll do is can you go into, hypothetically, can you hop into one of those widgets, and I'll show everybody on the call what we're talking about, but go in there and then like into edit mode and do the tooltip down below that to where you can highlight something that's out of whack. Because that happens all the time. So if you go into edit this and then I forget the functionality, but it's literally right like one or two options below the tooltip on a widget.
Talking about chart markers.
Chart markers, yeah, that's exactly why we created chart markers. It's so that you don't have to go back in and do these, something to make a report look right. In fact, if you don't have something that's out of whack, then you're lying. Like everybody knows you're lying because no business is perfect. They're perfectly bell curved in how it behaves. There's always an outlier. So what this does is it addresses the obvious. You can go to edit chart marker, right. And then you click on I know you know this. I'm just telling everybody else on the phone. You can go click on that anomaly, and then it allows you to explain what went on there. Like maybe it was a bad, something happened this day. It was bad for this customer, and then it also allows you to. Do you want to have it show when the dashboard is opened, or do you want to have it like not expanded, but not contracted either, because that sounds disgusting. But like do you minimized? And then have it blinking. Like there's some options there to be able to kind of, Jen broke this. That's that's perfect. Jen broke this, and that's why it's that way. I feel like there's always a way to kind of handle some of those egg on your face scenarios where people get really uncomfortable with what they're seeing. So thanks for highlighting that, because that's reality.
Can I ask a question on this chart markers?
Sure.
So is chart markers dynamic so that if I put a comment on a particular customer, when the selection changes, will the marker go away? How does it work, please?
So that's a great question. I think I do it when a widget is more static, because like you said, once you change kind of to another complete view, if you're completely doing dynamic queries, it's not going to orphan it, but it will lose the effect. I typically have it or put it when it's the first thing you see, not if it's buried under like 7 or 6 clicks where someone might potentially see that. It's usually, for me, it's like the focus. So, like I feel like executives, they want to say, tell me what went really well, or tell me what went horrible. It's kind of those two polar opposites. I typically do it when it's kind of like the opening filter. You know how you can set an initial filter for something? That's when I use them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
That's really all that I have. Any questions?
First of all, this was an awesome presentation. Thank you. And your dashboards look super cool. Extremely well designed.
Thanks.
This is super. I can't tell you how much it gets me excited. This is awesome. The other thing too is like each one of those, you also have the ability on that client health score, the end user can go in there on that score and add, notification to let them know when that drops below 80, for example, and that is specific to the end user. And
Bill, you're coming back for another round in the future.
Yeah,
so
you gotta go.
One of the really neat things that we did is, so our account management team, we embedded this dashboard on their home screen and have it automatically filtered to the accounts that they are owning, so they can see the account list of the accounts that they own and what those scores are. They can dive directly into Client 360 and look at any of those key metrics and see the aggregate data that's feeding it all.
That's the secret. That is what you just said is the secret to adoption. I've got a specific customer, a large regional bank in the Midwest area, that they had something that was, I'll be honest, it was only about 20% as good as this, but it was amazing for them, right? They didn't embed that. So they maybe had about 20% adoption. They embedded it on the account page, so it did what you said, and it went up to 70% adoption from 20 with Einstein Analytics, and completely increased their brand and who was aware of them and who used them. So embedding this inside the core Salesforce program is genius, and it's the way to go for adoption.
Mm-hmm. And I love the name, Client 360.
Yep.
And it is dynamic. So on our one that's actually live, when you make a selection that you can actually see, it'll change to the name, because we do have use cases where people are wanting to grab snapshots of this and use it in different presentations to compare and things like that. So we do have some of that. And I mean, I like this brand because we are the Well Sky CIA. I couldn't just put CIA. I had to do Client Informatics Agency, but it's the same thing.
You know, my challenges for you next for this is, these your next few pages, like when you go to edit this, your next pages, they're going to be a client portfolio meeting. So you're basically reusing the same objects you see on this screen, but it allows the relationship manager, client manager to go step by step and kind of like an infographic. So you've got everything on one page here. Maybe the next tab, the design tab or page, sorry, kind of takes them through step by step with, you might have 2 widgets, but in a lot of explanation text, but it's all dynamic and it keeps them out of PowerPoint, because you're kind of essentially doing the PowerPoint in here.
Right. Yep.
The other thing too, did you look at notifications or like notifications, like watch lists, or doing subscriptions to these, especially with the latest version, being able to get that in your email?
So, I mean, where it's something like this, where it's dynamic based on the selection, that wouldn't work. But you could do that on some of the other ones that we provide to each end user, where it lists out their client health score and the related attributes for each one of those clients, and they could certainly do that.
Oh, I meant like if you go, so they've got, because it will remember the filters. So if they go in there, and I know they have a lot, but let's just say their top 3, they make account selection, Bio Plus, then they go to client health score and they hover over top of the client health score and then choose
subscribe or notifications. Add to watch list.
Yeah, can you just show people on the phone, or show people on the webinar?
I think I took off most of our drop downs because they were getting annoying to me in this version. So I don't I don't think they exist here.
Well, any of them, or just any of them that has it enabled. If you do have it, like on the pie chart, I just want people to know that there is the capability to, on the widget level, subscribe to the widget. And in the upcoming winter release, you can subscribe to each individual widget and have it email you what it is like you can schedule it to run every midnight at 12 a.m. and it knows your specific filters that you've set for that analysis. So it's really powerful. On the
it already exists. If you turn it's in beta, if you turn it on, it allows you to do that already. So yes.
It is GA. Okay.
Yeah.
It's beta, isn't it?
In beta.
I thought it was beta. I thought it was beta and then GA in the winter, but
no, it's it says it's in beta, but that's why you have to turn it on in the settings.
Okay, but it doesn't GA until the winter release. Okay.
Right.
That's perfect.
So thank you, Phil. This was an awesome presentation. Before we move on to Kevin, Carl has joined us. So Carl, you have seen 2 presentations. So any comments?
Looks good. Nothing else to add. Thanks for sharing, everyone.
Okay. Kevin, you're up next.
Thank you, Sayutani. Appreciate it. So yeah, let's get started. Jump right on into this. So I'm Kevin Mcghee. I work with Marillac St. Vincent Family Services on the south side, well, the north side and the west side of Chicago. And we're a nonprofit organization that addresses a lot of different needs across the Chicago community, one of which being early childhood education program. And one of the things that I was charged to do is to join a collaborative across the Chicago landscape that do similar work as it relates to identifying, measuring, and benchmarking early childhood education programs. And so let's get you guys on this screen. So collectively joining forces, benchmarking assessments is what we're going to be talking about today as it relates to how I'm utilizing the Einstein Analytics platform. In my case, I'm utilizing Studio. So I got probably the lesser version of all of the 3 that's available, which is definitely fine with me at this moment. It was kind of hard to get this integrated into our organization, but needless to say, after joining the first time in Meetup during the Midwestern Dreaming, I was welcomed in with Jeff. He was sitting behind me, and Pete was there. Pete Lyons was there. Sanitary did a great job facilitating that Meetup, and that was my very first time joining up with the Einstein Analytic Group. And at that time, I didn't have the license afforded to me to start executing the things that I would like to.
That was so fun. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that was a year ago. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
We had
I still have the picture of that and put it on LinkedIn every once in a while for old time's sake.
Yeah, we got some cool prizes and some handouts from you guys, so we appreciate that. But yeah, in doing that meeting, it enlightened me to go forward and to dive a little bit more deeper into my reportings as it relates to our organization, to let my senior leadership team and my execs and also my board members know that we can go a little bit further in our insights as it relates to our early childhood components. And so, quick overview, I'm going to talk about the TSG. TSG assessments is what it is. It's Teacher Strategies Goal Assessment. It's a program that is utilized across the country where they assess children from 0 to 5 years of age, and to kind of get those individuals well equipped and adapted in different domain areas so they can be well adverse to going to the kindergarten grade level. We'll talk about how the cycle and the objective works and a little bit about that background. Also, how I took the Salesforce org that I'm currently using with the nonprofit service pack and translated over into, or transferred the information from Teacher Strategy Go into to the Salesforce org, and then moved that Salesforce org information over in CSV file into the Studio Einstein Analytic platform. So now, and then we have a collaborative Einstein Analytic platform. So I'm working in 2 different Einstein studios, and I got 1 Salesforce org that I'm working in. And so you'll see the MSV Einstein studio I'm working in, and then we have the collaborative Einstein studio that I'm working in. And so a little bit of background about the assessment. So it's a progression that you have to do with the kids. So from birth to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and so on, they had different color bands. And so those color bands are graded and assessed and through observation from the teachers. And the teachers have the opportunity to grade these particular, the child that they're looking at and throughout the school year and the class, throughout the class time, on their objectives. And so if they meet the criteria, the teacher will grade them, on a scale of 1 to 5 and say, hey, this is where they fall in that particular dimension. And so on Teacher Strategy Go, they do have a platform where they do their reporting system, what have you. But my director of the early childhood education program said it wasn't as intuitive like she would want it to be. So I told her, I said, well, maybe it's a tool out there outside of what we're doing on the org with Salesforce nonprofit service pack that might can drive a little bit deeper into this process. And Einstein Analytics was brought to the table, and we pretty much took all the data from Teacher Strategy Go in a CSV file and converted it over into a data set onto the Einstein Analytics platform. So this is like, one of the snapshots how we just grab the information and data from Teacher Strategy Go. And you can see all the different domain fields that we have to try to capture. And this goes on across. I just took a little snapshot. And so after we grab all the information, aggregate it, and do a query of all this data, I was able to bring it into the Salesforce org with the first slide you see in the first screenshot. That's the Salesforce Nonprofit Service Pack org. And then the second one is our Marillac personal one that I try to gear it towards our teachers. Our teachers pretty much are busy, and they just want something that's really quick and simple to use and grab information from and then move on with their day. So I kind of made like a little simple chart as it relates to the domain areas and the reporting system for Teacher Strategy Go. And then as the collaborative group, we was able to combine all of our instance from all the organizations across Chicagoland area and do a benchmarking comparison based upon all of the kids that we're serving across the Chicagoland area. So that we thought that was pretty high intensive and more insightful for not only our executive team, but for our board members. I put this in here.
Hey,
I said,
can I ask you a quick question about that? So do you all work hand in hand with CPS, or is this more outside of CPS, like CPS teachers, like for pre-K and K?
Yes, outside of CPS. So we outside of CPS, but we try to use some of their language as it relates to what they're doing, so it kind of be apples to apples. So like.
Okay, cool.
And so I put this slide here. Well, yeah. Let me get back out of here and show you a little bit on the platform. How does that look?
While Kevin is sharing his slides or presentation, anyone has any questions for him?
Well, actually, I think, Kevin, you're figuring out something technical, right? I think we should leave Kevin on just for a second until he gets, oh, it looks like it is there. I feel your pain, and this happens to me all the time, and I'm like, oh.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
All right, so this is the Salesforce org in the nonprofit service pack, and so we just have basic information about the teacher strategy goal, and then we'll move over until the org for Marillac St. Vincent, where we can kind of drill into what happened in the fall, what happened in the spring, what happened in the winter, current year, 2 years ago, 1 year ago. Then with Marillac, we have two sites. We have a north side and then we have a west side. So we can have the options of the teachers to take a look at what information transpired at each site. And then we can drill into what different dates and time of the year, the previous year that they would like to take a look at. But here's what's most interesting right here. If you take a look at this slide, well, this page talks about how we're trying to get those kids across the entire Chicago landscape with the collaborative at a percentage where they are ready for kindergarten. And so under those domains we were talking about earlier, how we try to identify those kids, we talk about the cognitive domain, the language, literacy, math, physical, and social emotion. And then with those, we want to try to see if they had increase in those domain areas. So if they had any increase, we get that mark off of that CSV file that you saw with all those entries done by observation. And then if it's a 0.5, that means they went above those domain areas. And then if it's 1.0, that means they went an exceptional well over those domain areas. So we want to track that as well. So if we look across the entire landscape of Chicago, we can say kids in language are 91% of increase in across the whole and from fall to spring. And then we can measure that from fall to winter. And then we can measure from winter to spring and see where the kid falls at. And then if we see an alarming number, like 72%, we can go back to the collaborative and ask the question, what are we doing to address some of these kids' needs in the physical realm and kind of move forward in that. And then I can drill down into different sources. So this is Marillac St. Vincent's out of the collaborative group. And it brings up our data. So we were struggling somewhat in physical. So it was a great way to kind of, look into that information to say, hey, what are other organizations doing so we can kind of capitalize on that increase up to 72%. And something can be very simple as making sure that the parents are engaging with the child while they're at home away from the center. So we thought this was very fun to utilize this platform and get valuable insights as it relates to seeing where the kids are located at in their each domain area. We do also utilize Einstein Analytics Studio for other objectives, but this has been pretty much one of my war stories because initially when I first joined on, we didn't have this EA available to us, and I was only just collecting information on the reporting piece, and I wasn't able to drill in as like I would like to for these any increase and 0.5 increase and 0.1 and 1.0 increase. So it wouldn't give me a good picture of exactly what a child is at. It just tell me if they had the assessment done or if they didn't have the assessment done. So by having this EA studio available to us is giving me the opportunity to drill down not only to that particular we de-identified that child on the collaborative group, but it gives us a percentage and we can kind of move forward into what we want to do in next steps and create improvement plans across all the Chicago landscape groups that's part of this collaborative. So,
man, Kevin, this is so powerful. This is awesome, man. I just like, it's crazy to see you go from a hackathon to like literally helping shape the way we prepare kids here in Chicago. Like, it makes me so proud and happy of what you're doing. This is awesome.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate you guys as well. You guys took your time out to kind of help me with certain questions and kind of steer me along the way. So that was pretty intuitive of you guys as well. So I appreciate that.
Well, I'm telling, like, I know I said it before as far as, like I volunteered to help, but I'm saying this publicly for everybody on the call so that they'll hold me accountable to to work with you together on like the version 2 or 3.0 on this. I'd love to work on this. I have a lot of ideas that we I'd love to meet up with you about with this.
So did all of this happen in a year? So you walked in there, because I remember you were in my group.
He was in your group.
Yeah.
I had the group of people who had never used EA, and I was walking you through basically, we were going to compete with all those teams no matter what, and now you're here.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. If you're a data person, you're a data person, right? You found your lost tribe.
Also, also to Kevin's credit, he joins every single meeting that we hold, be it or be it Chicago Einstein Analytics. He is always there.
Not only are you a war story, this isn't just a war story. This is a huge career success story right here.
Oh,
so
yes.
We have to have you back in the future again to talk about how you did it, right? You went from zero to hero in a year here. So
especially in the foundation, not for profit sector, like that's, I just like the stories we've heard today, man. I just wish I could like literally channel you all straight to Dreamforce, because these are like people won't
virtual Dreamforce.
yeah, this is great.
So Jeff has given Kevin the hashtag from zero EA to hero EA. So yes, that is what we saw today. Also, Sarah has said, "I love the quote by Albert. Great presentation."
Thank you.
Any other questions for him before we move on to Jen?
I do. My quick question is, and Kevin, we can look at this later, but is there any possibility of like automating the CSV file, like, bringing the data from the different places? I know it's going to be hard getting them from the different orgs, but I just wonder if there's anything in place to kind of like automate that versus you having to do it manually.
Yeah, we have a data format that we use with all the affiliates that's collaborate together. So everybody use that data format. So once we do the extraction from the teacher strategy goal, we put it in this formatter and make sure everybody have the same format, and then we upload it back into the org.
Are they all using Salesforce on the back end, or is it just they are? Okay.
Except for one. One of them just using the CSV file, and then we're taking their data and bringing the data set in on EA.
Because what I would love to, since we had the built-in Einstein Analytics connector, Salesforce connector, is they would create you an API, basically an API-only user in Salesforce that just has read-only access to those fields, and bring it in straight to Einstein Analytics directly. And that field, that user that they would create in Salesforce would obviously have limited access, only read-only. So there's really no. They would give you, they would limit the access to the fields on that object and everything, and then you could automate this and save you a lot of time. And like that's just, yeah, we talk later. I don't want to, you know.
That's good. I'm taking notes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
I couldn't be more proud. I really couldn't.
Yeah, this is crazy. Like, this is awesome.
Well, that hackathon gave us some crazy people. Kevin, Martin, remember?
Yes, I remember.
Martin, are you here?
I mean, Martin moved, didn't he? He moved.
Did he leave Chicago? What? Oh, that's right, he did. I remember him telling us. That's right.
So yes, we had some really great people coming out with no Einstein Analytics experience and then doing these things. So Jana, if you're still on the call, you see there are people who start from nothing but have built this out.
Yeah, I was really inspired by Kevin's story.
Yeah.
I think we can get there someday.
You will. And
You will, you are.
Now you know that there's a data tribe, you know there's the success community, just ping us, we are always there.
And I was there 2 years ago. So we've all started there.
We have all started there, exactly. None of us came knowing this.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to be part of this. I'm not going to, you can't get rid of me.
Yay.
Also, I can see Luigi here. She also came for the first time last year, and she is doing data flows and more data flows almost every day.
Yes. Yay.
Yes, I started on this project as a project manager, and then actually due to the support of the people, I could say, oh, this community is really engaged in helping one another. I told myself, I think I can do this myself. So, which means now I never have a break. I do all the Einstein Analytics work.
But you'll also never not work. So that's the beauty of it.
You'll never have a problem with getting an awesome job. That's true.
But yeah, I mean, if it were not for the community, I probably would not have, taken the leadership to say I can do this. But I figured that when I understood that when I do not know how to do something, there is always someone that is very willing to help. So it's about the product and the community.
Yeah, because we all know what it's like to be sitting there going, is this just me, or is this something with the product, or are my requirements wrong, or you kind of don't know because there's no instruction manual for every use case for data in EA. So you have to ask.
And it's not your typical Salesforce, like we call it Salesforce Simple. It definitely didn't start out as Salesforce Simple, and we still got a little bit of way to go. But yeah, you're taking on the hardest part of the Salesforce platform.
Right.
Yeah.
Also, even for me, after 3 years of working with this, I start typing a question and then suddenly I realize, oh, I know the answer to this.
That happens all the time.
Yeah.
Walk away and get some brain space and come back, sleep on it, and then you're like, how did I miss that yesterday?
It always makes more sense the next day, always.
Okay, Jen, you're up next. And you have 15 minutes. And then last but not the least, Nico, who has joined the call.
Okay, so how do you share it with me? Sorry, I can pull data flows, so I can't do a meeting. So
join the club.
Oh, I just do share.
Yep.
Okay, it's that simple.
And
So
I'm sure when you're going to look for options, you'll see another really cool one that you really want to click on, but you realize then you have to focus on whatever you're doing now.
okay, for those of you who don't know me, like I'm the oldie locks in this group. I've been working with Salesforce pretty much since it started 2001-ish. My background is in pharma. I'm a data person. I've always been a data person. I'm just like way ahead of the curve. There was no EA back in the late 90s. So here we are. So when Sayantani and I, which first of all, see the party, my background, we could be in person, we would have decorated and celebrated. But I really owe a lot of what I'm going to tell you here to Sayantani, because she was like the first person that I met that was like me, who said to me, everything you're experiencing is normal, right? It seems like a train wreck, but it's not, right? So this is normal for everybody who's new when you first step in, to be like, oh my gosh, like I can't seem to get past this. And all it takes is just another person that works with the product to say, yeah, that's normal. Or maybe you should go talk to support. But yeah, there's a lot of industry support. And I love hearing all the comments from everybody. And last but not least, before I get in my presentation, when Sayantani and I kind of first started talking about doing these meetups, right? This is the reason why. What all we're talking about here is so that we have a forum, because there's not a lot of us in this industry that do this. There's not a lot of data people in general. You kind of have to have, you know, a lot of us are spectrum who do this because we have different kind of minds than everybody else. And
Exactly.
this is a safe place. So what do you want to do for the anniversary? Let's have like Analytics Anonymous, right? Like, let's have a safe space for everybody to come, share what they've experienced, even the worst, right? And show how I mean, you can't pay for this education, right? You can't go buy an EA use case, right? And get put through it. So here we are. So I'm the one that when I was younger, when I was in my last job, you know, if a CEO didn't like my dashboard, I would cry. Yeah, this is like 15 years ago, right? I'm very, very soft-hearted. I want to do a good job. I want to feel useful. And I love
I still do that, Jen.
So I always say when I'm telling somebody the story, which some of you on this call know about this project when I tell everybody, but I always say this is like doing a spooky story over a campfire, right? Like this is like, and this one time you'll never believe what happened to me, right? And so I wanted to preface it with this, because if you can't laugh and you can't keep humor, I'm like den mom now where I work. You know, I have a team of like 30 millennials, right, that work under me. And, you know, I'm always the one that's like, okay, everybody calm down, or everybody needs a break. We've been working real hard. Go eat, get your blood sugar up, take a nap, right? So I went from being the one who cried to the one who's, you know, trying to prevent other people from crying. So it's all a full circle for everybody. Just so you know, every experience you go through, I think of Jana, right? Like, you know, and another year from now, you're going to be like, oh, I've got this, right? If this ever happens again, I know what to do. But you have to kind of experience it to know. So I made these slides today because I filled in for somebody, and so they're not the best slides. And I know you're not supposed to write your dialogue on here, but I wrote them so I could go really fast, and then people could look at them again after and ask questions. So my war story starts in 2018. I've always worked with Salesforce, right? Like that's been my whole entire career. And I decided I was going to specialize in analytics. And then I decided I was going to specialize in Wave in 2015, but I was really, really bad at just coding with JSON. So I had to wait till the user interface came out. And so the user interface came out summer of 2017. And I got back into the mix. And at the time, December 2017, I was asked if I wanted to take on a full EA project. And I was working for myself at the time in consulting. I wasn't with Big Pharma anymore. And I was like, yeah, I'll take that project, you know, because I want to get my foot in the door. So you better be careful what you ask for. So I got my foot in the door. I get my first project landed on me only like, 6 months after the UI comes out, right? I'm just, well, there's no training manual for this, so I'm just gonna wing it. And I kind of just bullet pointed the horrors right here that I wasn't told until my first day on the project that Accenture had the project before me. And the project was with, and I guess I could say their name right, Jeff, because they're not in business anymore, right?
Yep. Yep.
So it was with Talent Rover. They're a recruiting company. So they're recruiting people and they'll place them, but they'll also do like temporary jobs where they get part of their income when they come in. So they need to know the recruits that are going out to jobs and whose job's ending so they can replace them. And then they're also going out and trying to get new people placed with other jobs for a fee. And they were a pretty big company. So I kind of couldn't understand why, like when I walked in, like why would Accenture dump this project? It's little old me, right? At home with my kid, you know, not unlike pandemic, doing this project. So on my first meeting, I was also told the project would be turned into an app. Like whatever I was going to build, they were going to sell. Well, that's complimentary, except this is my first project. Okay. Well, you know, I guess this is happening, right? We're going for it. And also I was given, you know, so I was like, I need the credentials. You know, I went through my normal checks and balances as a consultant, right? Like I need the org I'm going to log in to work. And they gave me a dev org that was blank with absolutely no data, no users, but it had the structure their object structure. Their object structure did not consist of any standard objects. It only consisted of their packaged objects, which were like, you know, all the stages of, if you go out on an interview, you know, it's like, you know, callbacks and, you know, signings. And so their objects were actually named after stages of the recruiting process. So there was no accounts, there was no opportunities. And the core object that held this org together was jobs. So it's either jobs that they were getting a fee for or jobs they had to place people. And then it had all these, you know, it looked like a mind map, you know, there's middle of jobs and all the other objects, you know, out the sides, but they didn't all connect to each other. Everything just connected in to jobs. So all standard objects gone. So there goes my last.
Excuse me, how, like, what would you have done without Schema Builder? That would have been my worst nightmare.
Drawn it. I probably would have had to draw it.
Held hostage by their domain expertise.
Yeah, so I think of like Sayantani or some of the other people on this call who, you know, are newer to Salesforce. I had all these years of Salesforce, so I know the object the back of my hand. But if you didn't know the object structure, you'd be like, where's the lookup field, or where's the related list to this? You know, nothing like that happened. And then I was given this, you know, the person who was telling me what to do. We're still really, really good friends. You remember, I don't know if you ever met Allison, Jeff, but we're still really good friends. But she was a sales manager. She was like over all the recruiters. So she's telling me what to build, but she doesn't even know what a object is in Salesforce. And she's telling me what she wants it to do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I didn't have any internal, like.
I was just in sales.
Yeah, I'm really, I want everybody to understand you're doing great because you're not this. Whatever your project is on your plate right now is not this project. So everybody here is being successful. My first ask in the project, and I'm going to show you my solutions to it in the next slide, but my first ask was, you know, obviously they wanted all of these objects in a calendar. Like I was to build a dashboard that looked like a calendar, and you could click on any day in the calendar and see what was going on send-outs or temps, you know, any of those custom objects. Now, we all know how regular Salesforce is done. We've never built Salesforce off a calendar before, even though it's not the worst idea, but it's not something that's ever been done, to my knowledge, outside of this project that I did.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't even really get calendar not only did we not have that, we didn't get calendar scheduling until like Field Service Lightning with OEM and Click. So yeah, we weren't. Actually, yeah. I take that back. Nonprofit was the first one. Nonprofit Starter Pack was the first place where I saw where people could have anything calendar related. Like
exactly. And so I actually got through all this, and I'm going to show you how I got through that. But I got through all of this, and about Midwest Dreamin' 2 years ago, when I had met Jeff and Sayantani and all these other people who were like, wow, what you do is like, I thought I was failing at this project, and they saw what I was building, and they were like, that's really good. Like that's really good that you figured out how to like get through all of this.
my jaw literally, I remember my jaw literally dropped when you named all the objects. I'm like,
I think there's 12
no standard objects.
Yeah,
what?
There was 12 custom objects that needed to be grained on a calendar. And when I was actually at Midwest Dreamin', they had asked me to come back the next Monday to show what I had built. So I went home, flew back on Monday, and went to a meeting to show what I built. And during that meeting, I got asked to come outside to be given some news. So mind you, I'm now like, oh, I'm so proud of what I built. You know, like, wow, I feel really good about my skills. And then I'm told that the company was bought by their competitor called Bullhorn, and my project is going in the trash can, basically. So I want you guys to think about this. You do all this work. You do all this work, and then somebody tells you, well, the competitor is buying the company, and it's not on a Salesforce platform. So everything you built, you're still getting paid. Don't worry, you're still getting paid, but you're going to have to find another job. And you're also, you know, everything you built is going to go away, right? Once you leave. And man, I think about it all now, and I would not be the person that I am. I love my job right now. I absolutely, I build data flows as a living. I couldn't be happier with my job, but all of this contributed to where I am now, because going through all these experiences really made me have to like do some soul searching about what I wanted as a career. Like, I know I'm a data person. I know I want to work with EA. Maybe consulting isn't for me, because I don't like to do work and give it away to other people. Like, I want to, if I have a baby, I want to take care of my child, right? Make sure that they're safe. And, you know, when you're in consulting, you build a project, and a lot of times you have to give it away to somebody who maybe can't take the same care of that child that you can. So it's funny, but it's not funny, but it has a really positive ending. And for comic relief, who was around in spring 18? Anyone?
Yep, a lot of us were.
Yes. So I was building this project and had kind of a proof of concept meeting due the Monday after the release. And so I found this screenshot on the fly this morning. Anybody that was around on that release knows that the UI had a ton of bugs the Monday after. And nobody knew that was going to happen, but sometimes that just happens with Salesforce stuff. So I had this huge meeting, and I had to get in and show them, you know, so this was like their job placement calendar that I had done. And then it had like an analysis page with all these, you know, lines basically showing, you know, each company and how many people are going in and going out, if it's candidates or not candidates. And I got to present what I've built, and it's all like smushed together like this. You know, can you imagine? And these are non-technical people, so they're like, "Why did you do that? Why did it?"
I would have died. Like, I've had this happen a few times, like with customers' presentations, and like I literally wanted to cry.
Yeah, and I remember I didn't really understand, you know, because I didn't want to. I always take the blame for everything, and so I'm like, wow, I must have done something wrong. I didn't want to be like, oh, it's the release, because I didn't want to blame Salesforce and have them, you know, dump the product, right? So I was like, don't worry, I'll fix it. And believe it or not, somebody on the Einstein Analytics team and at Salesforce called my client for me. It was Amruta when she was there. Called my client and explained that I didn't host the project, that the release needed patching, and it would be fine in a couple of days. And I couldn't believe that Salesforce stepped in for me to say that I didn't like mess up my own stuff. But can you imagine you go into a big meeting and your beautiful dashboard looks like this? So
yeah, now I tell my clients that, well, this day is the Salesforce release. Give it a week or two before you start complaining or showing things to your clients.
Oh,
Exactly.
I'm in like PTSD mode like a month before the release happens at my new company. Like, we're finishing every project now. Nobody's to touch anything. We're not starting anything new. I'm going to prepare everybody for the changes. If you have bugs, let me know so I can report them. Like I am on it, right? Because I never want to live through this again, because that was
hashtag feature freeze.
Yeah. And let me finish up, because I definitely want to give Nicolai time to do his. So, all right. So how I ended the train wreck, right?
Jen, before you move along, Kevin says, there is no victory without a battle, no testimony without a test, and no miracle without an impossible circumstance. Chris Vallotton.
Thank you. Because sometimes I'm wondering, why am I doing this, right? And then other times I'm like, I know why I'm doing this, right? Because I like challenges. I need brain food. I'm a single parent, so you know, when you're a single parent, your life is mostly, you know, especially during the pandemic, you know, making sure your child gets homeschooled and whatnot. Like, this is how I keep my brain active, right? Is by working with data all the time. And I've also learned over the last couple of years since this project happened that attitude is everything. If you can't have fun while you're doing it, if you can't laugh, I mean, I have gotten in trouble in meetings because I'll laugh and make a joke, and the executives think it's like really inappropriate, or, you know, for me to
it sounds like
smile. But I'll remind them too. Are we having a bad time? Or are we having a good time? Data shouldn't be, I mean, unless we're in like one of those meetings where it's like the company's, you know, gonna close tomorrow. I wouldn't do it in that kind of meeting. But when we're talking about data.
Well, like it wasn't Enron, we'd be a little tread a little lightly on that one.
Right. So gratefulness. I'm so lucky to have a job. I have a job I love too. So therefore, I'm not going to bitch about anything. Yeah, we get annoyances, and yeah, there's always going to be those situations, but you know, I'll just text Scientani. I don't take it out on my users. I don't take it out on my team.
Yes.
Data tribe here, and I say, you know what, today's been hard.
Phone a friend.
Right? It's patience and gratitude, right? So long story short, I walked into that job, you know, I learned to have some confidence and say, well, no, it's Accenture, but who cares? I'm me, and I have a lot of data experience. And that was something I didn't have prior to working with EA, is this confidence in what like I know how to do. Because even the new people, there's nobody to work with EA, right? So even if you're new, you're better than most I'm not better, but you know what I mean? Like, you know more than most of the, I think
you're always at least one step ahead of everybody else. Yep.
We're about 3% of the overall Salesforce ecosystem that can work with it, right? So that's a very small percentage of people. So just take pleasure in the fact that you know something that a lot of other people, you know, either don't want to do, can't do, or don't know about it, right? So it's
take advantage of that when you want to learn about other parts of the platform and you feel guilty asking them questions. There are way more people that want to know about what you know with Einstein Analytics than you asking them about Service Cloud or something.
Right. And there's a beauty to it being a small group. It won't stay like this forever, but there's a beauty to it only, you know, when you go to, if you go for a job, there isn't going to be 50 candidates. It's probably just going to be you. I mean, that you couldn't be in a better career position today, right, than to know something that the rest of the population doesn't. So a couple of pointers here. About making it into an app, I contacted the App Exchange team. I contacted the EA team, said, hey, I need some help. I've never built an app or a template from EA. And everybody helped me. And I have lifetime friends from that. So it doesn't hurt to ask. I filled my dev org with mock data from Mockaroo. And I got to make all the characters. I got to make the hierarchy of a pretend company and name it. And instead of being like, well, darn, I got an empty org and I got to do all this work to fill it. Well, I got to build those hours, right? So I build hours for making like the company of my dreams, a scenario of my dreams. I also, with the standard objects, I learned to use the schema builder to see, you know, like these three go together, but one's over here not connected to the other two. Anybody on this call has to build a data flow and they don't know how. Your first step, Scientani, and I can't like drive it in anybody's head any more than this. Use the schema builder. It will tell you all you need to know about what lives inside Salesforce. It's the most unused tool, in my opinion, for people that architect data.
Yep, and it also tells you how Salesforce joins them. So all your join objects exist. So if you join, say, opportunities with accounts, it's going to tell you exactly what is the join object in between.
Exactly.
And don't you even think too, like first step is when you go into the platform or go into Analytics Studio, do create data set, and using data set builder, that really does get you around having to know, like, because in Salesforce, if you join accounts to opportunity in the UI, it shows the opportunity name, but really under the hood, it's not the name, it's an ID, and it's
an ID.
And exactly, and people have to know that it's an ID.
Yeah, and you don't really know that as an end user, but doing the data set builder, it kind of masks that for you and do what, like Scientani was saying, there's a relationships tab there. It'll let you know everything that's connected, kind of like it does in Schema Builder. So for sure, take advantage of that.
And I'm going to tell everybody on here a little secret. In my office, which I haven't been using much since we've been in pandemic, I have an 8x4 whiteboard with colored markers, and I've gone so far as to draw out the objects and relationships in order to build a data flow. And you'd be surprised. I'm a visual person, so drawing it out, it made way more sense than seeing it like written in like a, you know, some spreadsheet of all the objects and all the fields. That does throw that out the window for me, right? Like I'm gonna know how everything is connected like a spider web to each other, right?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it's not a spider. Hopefully it's a straight line, but you know.
That's why we have to get that guy to do the data flow map for me, because I'm visual too.
Yes, exactly. And a lot of us are who do this job. A lot of us have parts of our brain, I think other people maybe don't, because the way we love analytics, right? We have this extra piece that hasn't been awoken in everybody, right? Or maybe it's the other way around. We're asleep, so we don't see everything everybody else does.
Right.
Way everybody on here is special in that way. The other thing, okay, so the last four real quick. You know, I learned a lot about compassionate speaking, which was something I'd always kind of wanted to do, and I hadn't, but I've learned to be like, sometimes I call it like the data whisperer or the data translator. Like I've learned to take like in my head what's very, very technical and explain it in layman terms to people I'm working with, because you don't assume people know what you know. So, and in return, I would get back from these sales leaders, you know, they would basically give me, you know, business information, you know, business process, how everything works. So it was a trade, right? Like I'll translate my language into your language and you translate yours into mine, so I can build it into something technical. You know, once again, patience and gratefulness too. Like you can't get mad at somebody because they don't know what you know. Well, you can get mad, but just in private, but not there during the meetings. And on my first ask with the disconnected objects is actually why I do data flows as a living now, is because I learned how to edge mark in a spreadsheet of all dates, times, all formats, 10 years past and 10 years forward as the grain of a data flow. And I'm sorry if I'm talking over anybody's head on here, but I rooted my data on my own object, which was a calendar, you know, calendar data. And then I could piece every single one of those objects in by the corresponding dates. And I was complimented by a lot of people, one of them being Jeff, that he couldn't. I did that for like my first real project, but I did. So I have a lot of confidence now in like, well, if I can get through that, I can get through regular, you know, my new job. It's standard Salesforce. I can do this, no problem, because
like it's all downhill complexity wise from that first project. That was crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. And then, you know, obviously a heat map doesn't act like a calendar, and some of what they wanted didn't work like that. And you can kind of see a little bit in this spreadsheet, I mean, not spreadsheet, what did I do to my screen? There we go. That little screenshot, you can kind of see how I tried to use the heat maps to do the calendars. And what I ended up doing is having to put spaces in between the dates. There was like no action on them. And I actually created what they wanted, but not exactly to their expectations because there were limitations in the product. But it was a really, really good learning experience on how to tell people, you know, it's all in how you present it. So if you present it positively, like I was able to do all this, but we couldn't do, you know, these other things, but we'll be able to do these other things later. You know, it's just the best lesson in limitations and considerations. And, you know, it's not, and not just personal, like if EA can't do something, it's not my personal fault. It's just the limitation of the product. And I'm a people pleaser, right? So this was a very good lesson for me to learn how to tell people, well, you can't have that, or have it yet, or you can't have it ever. And last but not least, I'm going to say it one more time, the separation anxiety. When I found out I was not going to have that project ever again, it changed my future. I said, you know, I'm going to have to be with the company, have the same, you know, org for forever or until I leave it, and keep all my work in front of me and be in charge of it and nurture my baby and help nurture everybody else's children too while I'm in there. And I did. About 2 weeks after I met Jeff in San Antonio, I interviewed for my job, and now I'm hitting my 2-year mark at my job this month. So, you know, what was a spooky story, a war story, a train wreck, ended up, you know, profiting me in the future in like a lot of ways. So that's why I tell all of you, congratulations on getting through your own war stories. And thank you for having me. I know we have another speaker. If you want to let him speak and then we can do my questions later, that's okay.
Yep. Let's do that. Let's get back to your question, yours and Nico's questions together. Nico, you're up next.
Hello, everyone. Let me turn my video on here quickly. All right, 1 second. Let me just get my screens in order here. So hello, everyone. So my name is Nico Johnson. I am based out of Minneapolis. I have actually been to one Chicago Einstein meetup before, and that actually motivated me to start my own meetup here in the Twin Cities. So if you're ever in the Twin Cities, make sure to look out for us. So a little bit background on myself. So I work for a company called Spring ML. So I work on the consulting side, and I've been focusing on Einstein implementations for about 5 years now. So I remember I got my original training on Einstein, or as it was called, Wave, back in the day, soon after the product was announced back in November 2014. So it's certainly come a long way since there. And I'm excited to showcase what I have for you today. So what I'm going to be showing for you today is how we can achieve 4 stages of analytics. So let me start sharing my screen. And 1 second here, I gotta open my system preferences and allow for that. So while that's happening, because a lot of the customers that I work with, they say, okay, how can we go from descriptive analytics all the way to prescriptive analytics? So I'm gonna start sharing my screen. So give me 1 moment here.
And just a quick plug for Spring ML, your company. I've worked with them, that regional bank that I was talking about earlier. The large regional bank. Spring ML was crucial in their success and with them the whole way. And I think I've been working with Spring ML since the very beginning, actually. So it's just another systems integrator that I just absolutely love working with. It's how a lot of us, Pete Lyons, a lot of the people that you see are, on social media videos, they do work for a systems integrator because you get a lot of variety, and who wouldn't want to be an Einstein Analytics consultant full time? Awesome.
and we are hiring too, so look on our website if you're interested. So these are the 4 stages of analytics. So we start with descriptive analytics, just what happened. So that's just your traditional dashboard that might tell you things like, what is my pipeline today? And then we get to diagnostic analytics, where we drill down on those descriptive analytics to see, why did it happen? So then the next stage after that is the predictive analytics. So this is kind of what everyone's talking about today. So this is where we start to forecast what will happen. And as we'll see, and then the last stage there is the prescriptive analytics, because with the prescriptive, you want to be able to take action based on the insights that you gain in the other 3 stages. So as we can see here, as we get up in the different stages of analytics, it gets harder, but then also, the value also increases. So one of the most common questions that we get, as I said, was that, our customers want to be able to achieve all 4 stages of these analytics. And they want to be able to achieve this, with, minimal having to go between different apps or different record pages. So we've worked with customers to actually achieve all 4 of these stages using Einstein. So what I'm about to navigate here to, it's a demo that we built that was based off of an actual implementation. So let's walk through how we can add all 4 of these stages of analytics. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing just a normal account record page. So this isn't really pretty exciting. Really, all you get is your account details and your tasks along the right. So how can I achieve the descriptive stage of analytics? First thing I want to do here is I just want to add an Einstein Analytics dashboard and then embed it on the page. So I'm just going to go to my Lightning app builder, and let's do this one stage at a time. So I've built a Account 360 dashboard. So this dashboard is quite similar to the one that Phil was showing earlier. So I'm just going to add it to the page here. And then let's just select the dashboard. So, okay, so then I'm going to click Save. And then let's just make it a little bit taller here. Normally, I would also add in the filter to make it filter to the account that I'm viewing. But just for the sake of time here, we can just kind of look at it at the high stage. But let's take a look at how this is going to help the user now, because we're already telling the user a lot more than just with the boring old account page that just showed the details and the activities. So what we can see now is I've got a dashboard that shows me just details around things like opportunities, my pipeline and my one-ops, and then tasks and cases as well. So if we think back to those 4 stages analytics, so what this is doing here, this is achieving the descriptive stage of analytics. Because now I'm able to see, okay, I've got this many open ops, I've got this many open tasks at this account. So now let's see how we can achieve the diagnostic stage of analytics. We can also achieve that diagnostic stage of analytics with this dashboard here as well, because as you can see along the top, I've got details into my different objects here. Because with diagnostic, you really want to be able to slice and dice and drill down on the data. So as an example, let's take a look at my cases detail. So after looking at my cases detail, kind of a natural inclination that I have here is, okay, I see that there's 4 cases that are high priority that aren't closed. So I want to drill down into that so I can get more details on it. So I can see here with my case table at the bottom, I can see exactly who that case is assigned to. I can see exactly what the subject is about. So in this case, something that I might want to do here is then I can use the Einstein Analytics actions to then, navigate to a case directly, or maybe I want to follow up with an owner. So what I did here is I was just able to slice and dice and drill down to, figure out why exactly, I have the cases are like they are, and down to the row level detail. So what I've done now is I've achieved both the descriptive and the diagnostic stage of analytics. So the 3rd stage of analytics was the predictive. With predictive, we're going to use Einstein Discovery. So what I've done in Einstein Discovery is I have built a model that shows me the account's propensity to churn, meaning what is the account's likelihood that they are going to leave us as a customer. Again, I'm just going to go into my Lightning Edit page here, and I'm going to drag an Einstein predictions card onto the page here. And again, this was built with Einstein Discovery. And then we just deployed the model. If you have any kind of specific questions about how to do that, I can link you to some good material on that. So it's this one here. Okay, let's save it. And I'm going to go back here. And now let's see how this page looks with the predictive component added. So as we can see with the predictive component is Einstein has predicted that this account has an 88% likelihood to churn. That's pretty high. And then I can also use the top predictors to see kind of why that happened. Okay, I can see that they don't have any support level, and their license utilization is pretty low. And then lastly, Einstein also gives recommendations on how to improve it. They're telling us, okay, we can change the support level, or we can deliver to them in-person training. Because figuratively, if you give them in-person training, that license utilization is probably going to go up. So what we've done here is we now have a predictive component, and this predictive component is telling the user, it's probably going to worry the user, because the account has a very high propensity to churn. It looks like they're going to leave. So they now know that this is an account that they need to pay very close attention to. So this has achieved the predictive stage of analytics. But now the last stage that we need to solve for is the prescriptive. I've seen that through the predictive component here, that this account is facing an issue. So now what we need to do with the prescriptive component is, how can I solve that issue? How can I take action to essentially decrease the churn likelihood and ultimately make it more likely that they're going to stay? And to do that, what we've done is we've used Einstein Next Best Action. So Einstein Next Best Action, it's a tool where you can build like logic similar to like a lightning flow, where we can expose recommendations to our clients, or excuse me, expose them on the page here. And then essentially what that does in the background, if the user accepts it, it kicks off a flow. So it takes that step to actually, taking action on an insight that you have. So once again, I'm just going to go to my Lightning editor here.
It's really a shame Salesforce didn't come out of the box with this 20 years.
Yeah.
What do I do now? This is a what now app.
Yeah, and then so now all I'm going to do is I'm going to add the next best action component. I'm going to place it right below the Einstein predictions component. And then once again, I think this should automatically, let's do 2. This should automatically take, okay. And then let me save that. And then from here, we can go back and let's just take a look at how this looks on the page now. Okay, so what we can see now on the page is, again, so I see with the prediction that I need to pay attention to this account because the churn likelihood score is high. And then with the next best action component, I now know what are ways that what are things I can do to improve that score. Because one key thing to keep in mind here is that, so this score, we can save that score on the account object as a custom field. And what we're doing here is we're using this score along with some other fields to drive our recommendation. So if our likelihood to churn is very high, we want to commit drastic actions. Things like offering platinum level support or offer free on-site training. If the churn likelihood score was only a 50, we probably don't need to do as drastic of actions. We might just want to automatically follow up schedule a call like 2 months down the line. But we can base these actions, again, based off of the churn likelihood score. So the 2 actions that the user here sees here is offer platinum level support and offer on-site training. And notice how this kind of coincides with the top improvements that we see above. So as a human, I would know that offering the platinum level support is probably better here because no one's working in an office in these times. So how am I going to deliver the on-site training? Doesn't really make sense in these times. So as a human, I'm going to make the choice between these 2 actions that Einstein recommends to offer the platinum level support. And then I can say, yes, I want to offer the next level of support. I can say, what discount do I want to give them? Since the churn likelihood is so high, this is one of my key accounts, I'm just going to give it to them for free. And then what this can do in the background is it can, send out an email to the customer letting them know about this free support, or it can, create a $0 opportunity, or, create a task or event with, someone that can reach out to the customer, them letting them know about this free support. So what we've done here, so now we've done the last step. We've taken that prescriptive action based on an insight that we gained, that can ultimately improve the business outcome and hopefully make it more likely that this account is going to stay on a customer. And I just want to note here now, in the complete picture, like I can see all 4 of these stages within one view without needing to scroll. And just think about how much better and that is than just the account details that we saw, at the beginning. So I know we've run a little bit past time here. That covers my presentation today on achieving the 4 stages of analytics.
This was awesome. Thank you so much. And I think we got to start with something as important and yet basic that Jana did, which was implementation. Yes. And then we end with something that is also extremely useful and good to know when you go, what you do from start to the end, express actions. So we covered the whole full life cycle, as I think Jeff pointed out. Yes. So yes, we did the whole thing. Thank you so much for jumping on this.
Of course, yeah. Happy to do it.
Any questions for Jen and Nico?
I know the chat has been hopping, but I've not been looking at it. Multitasking.
Yeah. As Jeff said, that's for showing the full life cycle of Einstein Analytics and Discovery. Yep. Questions?
Like Nico's hashtag would be, you weren't here in the beginning. We were talking about what would you hashtag your worst story. Yours is like hashtag what do I do next, right? Like it's all great to have all this data, but now what do we do, right?
Yep. Kevin said ABCs of Einstein in expressed actions during Chicago Midwest Dreaming. He loved your session. It was a great session.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was actually, because I remember you did the meetup that same week. So I think that was the one that I was able to go to.
Look where we are a year later.
Exactly where we are a year later. Okay, so that's about it. So thank you everyone for joining. And Nico, okay, so there's a question for you.
Sure.
Prabhat asks, does taking the action change the churn probability?
So it depends on the what you included as an explanatory variable here. So in our case, it would. Because in the background, since we offered a platinum level support, I think we have a support level drop down here. So I don't know if I think there might have been an issue. Let me actually refresh with the demo being broken at some point. If it doesn't work, because essentially what I did when I kicked off that action, it updated the support level to platinum. So it looks like something broke with the flow, but let me just kind of show you quickly here. So if I then update the support level to platinum, and with the action we can make that be automated, but then look how the churn likelihood dropped to less than a 50. Because anything within the next best action, that's going to allow you to change things on platform, on the object, and then that's what's going to drive the score, because you're including these fields as explanatory variables in the model. So that's what's going to change the score.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, everyone who joined. I know Phil had to drop off, but Jana, Jen, Phil, Kevin, Nico, thank you so much for giving us your war stories. And I hope everyone really enjoyed what they heard and they will get something back to themselves. It's a lesson for everyone, just not your doing it personally. Like Kevin did 1 year ago, he heard of Einstein Analytics and joined the first hackathon. And today he's building awesome dashboards. Then you have Nico, who's doing things from A to Z of Einstein Analytics, next best actions, predictions, whatnot. Then you have Jana, who's trying to implement it in her company and finding the right resource, finding the right training for everyone in the company to understand. And
there's nothing wrong with working backwards at all.
Exactly. Then you have, then we had Phil, who showed us some awesome dashboards and what all could be done with it. And last but not the least, we had Jen, who told us her first war story of what happens when a company gets bought off.
And many other things. But don't let that deter you, because every problem turns into a positive solution.
Exactly. Exactly. That's a very nice way to put it. Thank you, everyone. And
thanks.
Thank you. And if
I have that book too. Kevin's holding his book up.
Everyone, this will be circulated in the Einstein Analytics YouTube channel. So if you want, I will post about it in LinkedIn and on Twitter, so you can get everything about this. Thank you for joining, and we will see you in a month or two.
See you next month.
Thank you so much.
Stay safe, everyone.
Yes,
yeah.
Stay safe, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.